Oh, it is. Okay, here we go. We're sort of retooling and we're changing our attention from Noshim to Nezikin, which stems because everybody knows the joke about the four Bochum that were getting up a hair in Lakewood. I think I said it over many times. And there was a Bocher from YU, there was a Bocher from a Litvishe yeshiva, from a Hasidic yeshiva, from a Sephardic yeshiva. And they were all asked the same question: in which chelik of the Rambam can you find Hilchos Kedushin? So the Chusa said Chayes Kedushin, and he happens to be right. And the Ludwig said, "I'm Stomin Kinyan, Tzachai Kinyan, Kein. And then the YU guy says, no, it's probably an Avo because it's all about love. And then the Sephardi says, no, it's in Ezekiel. So that's why it makes sense that Bava Kamma should be after Kedushin, because someone gets married, he's a little rough on his wife, he gets to Ezekiel. Okay, the other famous story is there was a Rebbe in Cheder teaching this Masechta, and he started up with Arba Avos to do Fiat Uvos. So when the children said, Rebbe, there's only three of us, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So there's a kasha, but there's another kasha as well. We say every day in davening, "V'chorois imoy habris." Does the mother do the bris? The father does the bris. Elamai. Sometimes when it says av, it means aim, and sometimes it says aim, it means av. Gewaltig. Zog to Gemara. Arba avos nazika. There's four main headings in categories of nazika. Now, all that we're trying to discuss, we know that if you do damage to somebody else, you have to pay. But are you allowed to do damage? Does it say anywhere that you're not allowed to do damage? Yes, you do damage, you have to pay. But are you allowed to damage? So there's a whole bunch of different shittas in the Rishonim from where we know you're not allowed to do damage. And I'll just throw out some of them. Under learn that loy sigzoil also asks someone to do damage. Under learn from loy suchal asalim by neveda, you're mechuyev to return a neveda. Why? To save your friend from hezek. So kol shekain v'kol shekain, you're not allowed to damage it. There are those who learn that out of derachel darkinoyam. There's many, like 7 or 8 different shittas in the Rishonim where we know that it's also to damage somebody, but it is also to damage somebody even though you're planning to pay. Okay, so let's see the Heilige Mishnah. Arba avos nazikin. There are 4 avos nazikin, and Rashi tells us what is an av of nazikin. So Rashi says avos kari lahanach t'chsivan b'kro behedjo. There's many different categories of damage that you would be liable to pay for, but there's 4 main headings that the Torah mentions beferish, and those are in a very particular order. And Rashi says it's an order keseder shein ksuvim beparsha. So in the parsha, first it says shar, it discusses shar, then it discusses bar, then it discusses mave, and then it discusses heather. So this would be perfect if that was the case, but it's actually not the case at all. In fact, it's not in order at all. Mava is not there. As Tish speaks out, let's have a look. Even if you learn that when our Tana says shor here, it means regel, because we're going to learn that the category of shor has 3 different types of damage that could be associated with it. So if it's referring to regel, lo have to say there a parsha, because where does the Torah discuss the damage of regel? The regel nafkalami v'shilach es beiroi dichsiv basar bar. That's actually written after bar. So if that's the case, it should really say bar shor mav and hever. Mikol makam zaktois shem shor ksiv koydem beparsha the hainin negicha the keren. The Torah mentions negicha with a keren, stoising, goring, before it mentions bar, and therefore it mentions shor here first, even though the category of shor that the Tana might be referring to is regel. We have another problem. What if Mava is Adam? Adam is mentioned after Hever. So why in our Mishnah is it before Hever? Lebasar of Horksiv Parsha. The Parsha is Emor. It says Make Behemi Shalmena. If someone damages his friend's Behema, he has to pay. The Hainu Adam, the Azik Shor. That is the case of a man damaging someone's property. Nevertheless, loy chosh l'shnois I could say their parsha. Mave is the only one that's out of order, because if it was in order, it would have been after Hefer. Yet it was put before Hefer. Why? It's like way out, so we're not even placing it based on its position. Rather, the Tana decided to place it based on another consideration. The Shonlik is say there, loy harei de seifa. So let's get to the seifa of the Mishnah, and we'll see if we can understand why Mava is placed where it is, because it fits into the flow of the Mishnah that we're going to see. The Teretz of Rebbeinu Tam, we don't need to see the Mishnah later for. Rebbeinu Tam's Teretz is the Shem Adam Ksiv B'Parsha. It might not mention Adam as Adam Hamazik, someone's property, that it might say much later. But the Torah does discuss mankind doing these types of choshen mishpet type of affairs. Koidim ki yignev ish shor hu echad me'avos hazikin. By Geneva, which is also considered a mazik, by Geneva it mentions an Adam before it mentions Hever, so that's why Mava might have been placed here. But we're going to soon see there's another reason why Mava would have been placed here, because it goes with the flow. Okay, so let's see what the Mishnah says. After we listed off the four categories that the Torah specifically states, and we're going to see the psukim soon, the Gemara is going to go through those psukim, now we're comparing and contrasting. Lo yarei ashar karei Mava. There's differences between the nizakin of shor and the nizakin of Mava. And Rashi asks, what is the purpose of what we're doing here? Normally, when you have a lo yarei ashar, it's like we're trying to make a memetin. But that's not what's happening over here. The Mishnah is trying to explain, why did the Torah have to list off all the different types of damages? I could have known, once I know that you cannot damage, and if you damage, you got to pay, so then it should include everything. Zok the Mishnah, that's not true. If the Torah would have only said that an Adam HaMazik pays, we wouldn't necessarily know that a Shor HaMazik pays. Now, the Mishnah doesn't state explicitly why. We could make up our own svar. Rashi says the Gemara is going to tell svaris later, but that's pretty simple. The Torah says a man who damages has to pay. Lav dafka, if his property damages, he has to pay. Maybe only if he damages. So if it would say Mava, you definitely wouldn't know Shor. And if it said Shor, you wouldn't know Mava. You wouldn't say if Shor is Machayev you to pay. If your Shor damages, you have to pay those damages. Surely if you damage, you have to pay those damages. Why I wouldn't know one from the other? We'll have to wait for the Gemara. And then it goes, V'loi zeh v'zeh, sheyesh ben ruach hayim, kareya eish, she'ein boi ruach hayim. If the Torah said both Shor and Mava, they're both live things. Maybe only live things that damage you're responsible for, because you should have watched them. They're live, they can move around, they can do things. Mashek and fire has no life to it, maybe that I'm not responsible for. That's why that's say Eish. So and if it would have said Shor, Mava, and Eish, I wouldn't have known Bar. The beauty of the mazik of Adam mazik, a Shor mazik of fire, is they're like Amazon. They come to you. They have free delivery. They bring the damage into your backyard, similar to a mas. Kareya bar, if you want to get damaged by a bar, I'm sorry, you're going to have to come here. I'm not going to go to you to damage. You better come here. So bar is stationary, so maybe you shouldn't have to pay for the damage caused by a bar. What do all the four mazikin have in common? It's likely, without being careful, that they will cause damage. In all these four categories, it is incumbent upon the owner or the person responsible to safeguard from damage, and if they fail in their shmira and something that they're responsible for causes damage, the mazik must pay in full for all the damages. And if he pays cash, then he pays cash. But what if he wants to give property instead of cash? The meitav ha'oretz, he has to give the best of the properties that he owns. Gewaltig. Now, we have a little bit of a problem in our Mishnah, because if the Mishnah is trying to talk in order of the Lo HaReis, well, then Bor is out of order, because Bor was the last guy in the Lo HaReis, right? All three move to the perpetrator goes to the victim. Bar the victim comes to the perpetrator. So bar is out of order. So let's have a look at Rashi. Because of Rachman and Shor, if the Torah only wrote Shor, I would have never known Mav. That's why they all needed to be mentioned in the Torah. Why, if we're saying you need each one, wouldn't it make sense for the Tana to go in order of the Mishnah? Shor is not like a bar, Shor and bar not like Mava. The reason why I couldn't do that is because once the Tana would have said Lo Yarei Ashar Karei Bar, because bar is not stationary, then we wouldn't be able to continue. We would lose the whole buildup. We should still have a matzah l'misli Lo Yzev Zeh Sheyesh Ben Ruach Chaim. We couldn't say that Shor and bar have Ruach Chaim unlike Mava because it's simply not true. The bar ain't by Ruach Chaim. So therefore, in order to do this buildup, we have to change the order of things to be able to present it in a organized, built-up fashion. Voy time is another reason. The Rabuza Ashmina, there's a special chiddush between Mave and Shor. Shafagav sheish l'shneim ruach chaim, even though they both have ruach chaim, still lo nafik chad mechavrei. You wouldn't be able to learn one out of the other. So it's interesting because by Mave and Shor, the Mishnah says you couldn't learn one from the other, but the Mishnah doesn't tell us, beferish, what that distinction is. We have to speculate. But when you're comparing Shor and Mave to fire, the Mishnah does say it's because of Ruach Chaim. And when we're comparing the three to Bar, the Mishnah does say. So Tish asks, why in the first case the Mishnah doesn't say, and in the second and third case the Mishnah does say. You know why? Mishum dechad mechad kal limtzoi chaymer be'echad mashem b'chaveirei. It's easy to figure out on our own. We don't need the Mishnah to tell us. So I proved Tosfos wrong because I actually can't figure out why, if it says Shor, I wouldn't know Maveh. So I guess Tosfos was written for people that were way above my pay scale. But I'll call upon him. That's what Tosfos says.
That doesn't go.
Huh? The Tosfos is not wrong at all. It proves that Tosfos that's Einivus can have Blat Gemuda. Tish is not talking to me. Tish is talking to the Mesifta, and the Mesifta will tell me what's going on. Okay. Zok to Gemara Viter. I was speaking this weekend to somebody who's on the main editing staff of the Art Scroll. So he told me in Art Scroll we say the difference between Art Scroll and Mesifta is we hire Talmidei Chachamim to present the Shas to Amaratzim, and in Mesifta they hire Amaratzim to present the Shas to the Talmidei Chachamim. So that's an inside line. Medaf Deis Nish Mefarsh from side, but he told me, so it's too late. Zog the Heilige Gemara Vayter. Now he told all the four viewers. Okay. Zog the Gemara Vayter. So let's look back at Tosfos, because we had to stop doing Tosfos because it was out of order. So let's look at what we were saying over here. We were looking at the order. So Tosfos asks that so if Mava is written in the Torah after Hever, so why in the Mishnah was a place before? It says it in Parshas Emor Makabehem Mishalmen that I know Adam the Azik Shor. So the Tosfos lechos l'shenoisek eseder parsha. The Tana didn't care to go in order the parsha, and he was happy to put Mava out of order. Why? Litvishe rocha kolkach, because the parsha of Adam Amazik is so far away from the other three hezekas that the Torah discusses. Therefore, it just places it wherever it feels it makes the most sense, and therefore, where did the Tana place Mava? V'shonok yeseder loy harei de seifa. The Tana tried to put it here because it fits in best for the loy harei de seifa. Shemave koydem lehever. In the loy hareis, Mava is before hever, right? Hever is the second step that it doesn't have ruach chaim. But the question that you have to ask is, wouldn't it have made more sense to put Mava right after Shor? If the Tana is doing it based on the loy hareis, well, the first loy harei was loy harei ashar karei Mava. So wouldn't it have made sense to put the Mava right after Shor? I understand why it has to be before Hever, but it would make much sense to put Mava right after Shor. Is that not true? So this is what I didn't have the answer to this, but we pointed it out when we were learning this afternoon. And Baruch Hashem, we have Talmidei Chacham in our Bishmedish, like a Heilige Bacher Yitzchak Hirschman. And he came over to me and told me the Marsha says, the Marsha explains Toshus. So I didn't see the Marsha yet, so let's learn the Marsha together.
Because in the Torah, right after Shoy, it says, Yiftach Ishbara.
I said, but we're not going according to the order of the Torah. That's what Toshus says. So let's see what Toshus says over here. Ad kan l'shoynei. Zok tehelig Marsha. Abu Mashalei Nakat Bar Koidem Hamavir. The reason why Bar wasn't before Mavir, Nichalahu Bahanach Tarutim Matayim Shekos of Rashi. Eladahacha. 1 second. This is not talking about Mavir, so this is not what I'm looking for. Maybe the Marsha is not where I thought it was. 1 second. No, I don't see the Marsha here. He told me it was a Marsha. So let's see. Let's see.
Only the
no, he doesn't speak about Mav here. So maybe it's not the Marsha. So I'll have to look it up. I'm sure if Yitzchak Hirschman remembers it, the entire Bocher, I'm sure it's there somewhere.
Only the Mav and the Heaven. If Mav is right. Shem and Egg, then
no, if Mav Toys is going that if Mav is Adam Hamas. That's Toys is okay, so let's see the Gemara Vayter. Let's see the Heilige Gemara Vayter.
But if Mav is Shem, then it's going to
yeah, but where Toys is not working now with Mav being Shem. Mav Shem is to hold the story. Midikatani Avos. The Mishnah refers to these 4 categories as Avos. Mechlal dikatolos. There must be toldos. So the Gemara has now a very long shaila. Because in order to just get to the end of the shaila, we need a lot of information. So right away we can assume there must be toldos. So then the question is, toldos saying kayoyte ben oilav. Oilav kayoyte ben. The toldos of these avos will have exactly the same halacha, or not. Because there's other places in Shas where there are avos and toldos, and some of them are the same as the avos, and some of them are different. So because we see variation between avos and toldos throughout Shas, we want to focus on the avos and toldos by Nezika. So let's start with Shabbos. Gabe Shabbos none. Avos malachis are bom chaser achas. There are 39 avos malachis. And we make the same diak there. Avos mechlal dika toldos. And there, by Shabbos, toldos saying kayoyte ben, there, toldos saying is kayoyte ben. A tolda of a malacha is different than the malacha itself.
You can go buy milk tomorrow.
The tolda of the malacha is no different than the malacha itself. Loish na av chatos, loish na tolda chatos. If you did an av malacha b'shoigig, you're mechuyev to bring a korban chatos. If you did a tolda malacha b'shoigig, you have to bring the same korban chatos. Loish na av skila, loish na tolda skila. If you did an av malacha with edim and asra, it'll be a chiyav skila. If someone does a tolda malacha with edim and asra, he'll also need skila. So if that's the case, what difference is there between an av and a tolda? Zokta Heilige Gemara nafkamina dilu ovid shtei avos ba'adadon. What if you did 2 avos? You did lisha, ichveis, and you did tzira. Behelam echad, right? Inami shtei toldas ba'adadon. You did 2 toldas malacha together. Mechayev, you'll be mechayev akoil chad v'chad. You have to bring 2 korban chatoses. 1 chatos for av A and 1 chatos for av B, or 1 chatos for tolda A and 1 chatos for tolda B. Now, if you did it with Edim and Asra, you can't get Misa twice unless you have 9 lives. So that's why the example the Gemara gives is with Shoyig. Vilu Ovid Av v'tolda didei. But if you did an Av and the tolda of that Av, there loy mechayev alachad. So that's where it makes a huge difference if it's a tolda or not. Because in one heading of the 39 headings, all of the malachas that you would do that will be under that Av heading is considered like one malacha, and therefore you would only bring 1 korban chatos for it. So there's a reason why there's a distinction between Av and toldas, and you need to know which malachas are told of which Av. Frank the Gemara, that's very good according to the understanding that most Tanoim have. But Rabbi Eliezer, the Mechayev Atolda b'makom Av, Rabbi Eliezer holds that if you did a tolda and its own Av, behelam echad, you would bring 2 korban chatoses. So according to him, there's mamish no difference between an Av and a tolda. Amai karle Av, amai karle tolda. Zok the Heilige Gemara, hach the havos b'mishkan chashiva kari le'av. Any malacha that was a primary important malacha in the Mishkan, we refer to as an av. Mishkan chashiva, and if it wasn't an important malacha in the Mishkan, karilai tolda, it would be called a tolda. So it's merely semantics, how you refer to it. But either way, there will still be a chiyuv. Now, there's two pshatim in Tosfos on how to understand this line. So let me just read them in Tosfos so that I don't mess them up. So Tosfos has a little bit of a different girsa. Hachta avoy b'mishkan chashiva karlei av, hachta lo av b'mishkan chashiva karlei tolda. I'm sorry. So that is our girsa. Tosfos is going to bring another girsa later on. But first, let's see the first girsa. If we hach girsa, according to this girsa, what is the importance of this information of what an av and what a tolda is? There are many malachas that were not choshev, but we did them in the Mishkan. The toldos nenu, they're considered toldos, the loy avos malachas, and they're not called avos malachas. Could they remember perk by metainin? Hey melu akrashim mikarka lagola. The main avoida, the main avoida, the av was when they brought the krashim from the ground, which is a rishus harabim, to the wagons that they were placed upon, which were a rishus hayochid. So there was haitzam rishus l'shus. The hainu achnasa. It's bringing from rishus harabim into rishus hayochid. But umoishid b'yud achas. What about if you're passing it from one wagon through a rishus harabim to another wagon? Those are the malachas that are not so chashuv. So what I'm saying is those are told us. I still think you're mechuyev for them, but those are called toilets. There is the garsi, and there are those who garsh differently in our sugya. Hach dehava b'mishkan v'chashiva. It had to have two features in order to be mechuyev. Kar la'av hach deloyava b'mishkan v'loy chashiva kar la'tov. Zoktoysu shul figure sazu torach lemed deboy tarti. In order for it to be mechuyev, you need two things. A is that it's a malacha chashuva, and B is that they did it in the Mishkan. Avol chashuva will have a Mishkan. What if you have a malacha chashuva, but it was not done in the Mishkan? A ibcha have a tolda, it would be a tolda. While in the first shot, if it was not, so in the second shot, you have to be both. The boy tati avol chashuva will have Mishkan. But if you had a malacha chashuva, according to the first lashon, if it was a malacha chashuva, even if it wasn't in the Mishkan, it would still be considered an av. The nafkamina of whether or not it's an av or not, I don't know. But at least we have a distinction between what's an av and what's a tolda. Okay, so that's the story by Shabbos. Now let's look at another place in Shas where you find the concept of avos and toldos. Gabei tumas tanan. The halacha is the Mishnah in the first Mishnah of Kalim says avos atumas. What are all the avos atumas? Hasheretz. Hasheretz is an avatuma. Vashikva zera is an avatuma. Turning on Tamid Beis, the Tamid Mace. A mace itself is an avi avois atuma. If one touches a mace, or if anything touches a mace, for that matter, almost everything, then it becomes an av. Now, what if an avatuma? What if an avatuma? Tamei mace. The tamei mace is someone who became tamei from a mace. Told saying lav kayotzeh. The toilda, which is a rishon tumah, right? An avatuma touches something. The toilda of that avatuma is the rishon tumah. There's a very big difference in halacha between an avatuma and a rishon tumah. Dilu av metame odom v'kelim. An avatuma could be metame odom v'kelim because an odom could become a rishon and kelim could become a rishon. Vilu toldos, but a rishon tumah cannot be metame odom v'kelim because odom cannot become a sheni and kelim cannot become a sheni. You told us they could be metama oichlu mashkin and make them into a sheni, but adam v'chelim loy metame. So there's a huge distinction between avos and tolos. Frek Tish is a beautiful, beautiful question. I'm going to show you, in certain respect, that the tolda is exactly like the av. Why is that? Because we have a rule, Gerrer harei kechalal. A metal keli that touches a mace becomes an avi avois atuma. A metal keli that touches an avatuma becomes an avatuma. So the av is the person who's an avatuma. He touches a metal keli. That becomes a toilda, but it also becomes an avatuma. Because a metal keli takes on the same level of tuma as as the item that gave him tumah. So if that's the case, in fact, is kayoyta. If avatuma touched a metal keli, that metal keli will be metama adam keli. So Ibazoi told the same kayoyta ben. So Hakamar Gemara says told the same lav kayoyta ben. So Tosfos has a gaoyin shechap. The Yeshleim of Tosfos, even though the metal keli that the avatuma touched becomes an av, it's still not quite like the original person. You know why? The akati ain't oizek kayoyta boy. She oizek klimatchis. The klimatchis that the avatuma touched. And even though it made it into an av, if this klimatchis that became an avatuma touched another klimatchis, that klimatchis would become a rishon and not an av. So it's not exactly like what the avatuma is. So in any circumstance, the toiled of a tuma is not like the av. So now that we've seen by Shabbos where the tolda is like the av, and we've seen by tuma that the tolda is not like the av, what would be the case over here? Hachamai. What is the halacha by Nezikin? Are toldas like the av or not? Amar Papa, Zokra Papa, Yesh men kayoytze ben. You're going to find certain toldas of mazik that are just like the av. But Yesh men, you're also going to find lav kayoytze ben. So now we need to explore in depth what each of the avos malachis are, including their makar in the Torah where we know them. Then we'll discuss what could be the avos and what could be the toldos of these malachis. And using a process of elimination, we're going to have to find out which ones did Rav Papa mean when he said they're kayoytze behen, and which ones did Rav Papa mean when he said lav kayoytze behen. So we're going to start with Karen. Tanu Rabbanan. Gimel avos number b'shar. Shar, which is one of the avos Nezikin, actually has three categories of avos. It splinters into three categories. HaKaren, which is an ox goring somebody wanting to make damage or property. Vashain, Shane is not an animal trying to do damage. The animal's hungry; it's eating. It's doing something there. Also, it's not doing something out of being viciousness. It eats, but the lemaita it's damaging. But a regal again is not anything vicious. When an animal walks normally, it steps on things, and if there's something in its path, it's going to crush it. So Karen Minola, what is the makar of the hezek of Karen? Tetana Rabbanan. So let's look up these psukim. Shmois Chafalav. I have an old Gemara, so I don't have the psukim at the side. So I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to look up the psukim. No, I want to do it this way. I want to say because I remembered a story today where there was a father who wanted to send his son to a yeshiva, good yeshiva, but the thing is that it is important to him that his children should know Tanakh. So he took his son to yeshiva. His son's a top boy. It's a good yeshiva. The yeshiva really wanted this boy. He thought, this is a keli of a boy. I want your son. So the father said, I'm a little bit concerned sending my son to your yeshiva because you don't know Tanakh. So he's not going to know Tanakh. So the yeshiva said, what do you mean he doesn't know Tanakh? We're Bekim here in Tanakh. You can ask me any pasuk and I'll tell you exactly where it is. So the father said, really? Okay. So the father told him a pasuk. He said, I'll tell you where it is. It's in Sukkah Daf Lamed Beis. So I'm going to do one of those. I'm going to look up the psukim because we learned the Gemara. So Shmois Chaval. Let's have a look. Right at the beginning of Mishpatim. Okay, so let's see what we have over here. V'chiyigach shor ish, v'chiyigach shor esis o yesisha v'meis. Sokol yisokol ashor. That's talking about someone. That's talking about a shor who's killing a person. But later on, it also says v'chiyigoy shor is a shorei. So that's property damage. Umachur is a shor achai v'chatu es kasboy, which is chati nezek migufoy, which we'll see later what that means. Since this is not a normal type of damage, it's not normal for a ox to lose it and go crazy. The first two times it does damage, the owner only has to pay chati nezek. Once it happens twice, the owner should have already known that he needs to be careful with it. And therefore, and still below Yishmeni Bolov, then Shalom Yishalom at Atzul V'Atatale, Shartach as a Shar V'Amei Siela. So let's look at our Gemara. Where do you know anything about the nezek of Karen? It says Kiyigach. Now, how do I know Yigach means goring with a horn, because ein negicha ela b'keren. I know the definition of negicha is goring with a horn. Where do you know it from? So the Gemara brings it down from a very interesting place. Shenemar in Malachim Aleph, the pasuk is talking about Achav, who was a big Rasha, and he's actually somewhat related to today's Haftarah. So we could say the Livriyah strikes again, because Achav didn't like Nevi'im, because sometimes they told him things that he didn't want to hear. He called that fake news. So he decided he's going to, and he had a wife who was a witch with a capital B, a Rashanta called Izebel. And they decided that they're going to kill all the Nevi'im. But you need to have, yeah. So you need to have one pet Navi. So the one Navi that he kept was Ovadia, right? And Ovadia was the deceased husband of the Shunamis, right? Not of the Shunamis, of the first lady who didn't have any parnasa. And that's when Elisha came and told her to gather all the kalim, and the Elisha kept on filling oil, and she became an oil gevir. She became like a Texas oil mogul, because as many kalim as she had, he was able to fill up with that oil. So I'll call upon him. So we're talking here about Achav, and Achav wanted to fight Aram. He wanted to fight Aram. He wanted to capture their lands. So Yehoshaphat, who was a Melech Yehuda, came, and Achav told Yehoshaphat, "What do you say? We fight shoulder to shoulder. We get together and we take out Aram." Yehoshaphat said, "I think it's a great job, but let's ask the Navi to see if we're going to succeed." So Achav had a whole troop of fake Nevi'im, who Obama would call them his echo chamber, and he got them to say what he wanted. So the first Navi Sheker, Navi Abal, was Tzidkiyo. Now we all know Tzidkiyo. We all know that Nevi'im, they used to use props. When they would say Nevuah, they would often use props. Hashem would say, take this, take that. There would be props involved. So this tzaddik of a Navi, with a pay in front, wanted to show his Nevi'is is authentic. So what did he do? He made a prop also. But Yasla Tzidkiyo ben Kanano, Kaine Barzo, he made a set of horns out of steel, and he said his nevuah to the king, with these horns, you're going to shtois Aram. We're looking from a car of the Zokin. We picked this guy. It's unbelievable. He's the guy that we picked. So that's how you know that it's Karen. The end of the story was, Yehoshaphat says, I like all you Nevi'im, very nice, but can we get a real Navi here too? Maybe I want to get a real Navi. See what he has to say. So Achav says, I don't want to ask the real Nevi'im, because they have something against me. They're always saying up that I'm doing bad things. I don't like what they have to say. It shows that I want to hear. So they called out a Navi. His name is Mechio, I think. And this Navi came out, and he said, yeah, you're going to win. Everything's good. But he didn't say Koyamar Hashem. So Achav said, no. I know your tricks already. You just want to, don't want to get into trouble. You tell me what I want to hear. I want to know a real Nevuah. So he said, Koyamar Hashem, you're going to be very victorious, and all your men are going to turn in victory from battle without their king. So Achav says, I knew I didn't like this guy. Take him to jail. And then he went to fight the war. And in fact, the person who shot him wasn't even aiming for him. He shot an arrow, and Hashem made it that it should go through the scales of his armor, and it took him out, and he died like a dead dog.
No, he didn't.
Oh,
he stood his ground.
right.
I don't want to fall in war, because then
Everyone will get afraid.
So he went and it dripped. It dripped.
He made a trail of blood.
He made it home, and then
the dogs were looking up at blood. So this is the Makar.
It says there that they didn't lose because they were ba'achtas. They
were ba'achtas.
They didn't lose.
So this is how we know Karen is with a Karen. It means the shtais. The Omer, just in case you don't like this raya, we have another puzzle. The Chor Shoyrei Haderloi V'Karnei Re'em Karnov, referring to the Yosy the Tzaddik, V'Hem Amim Yinagach. Frank the Gemara, my Omer, why do I need a second pasuk? I have the first pasuk. I would ask Bukvakar, why in the world would I bring the first pasuk, which is from Navi about Navi Abal, if I can bring the. So we're going to get there in a second. But first, let's go with the flow of the Gemara.
Why do I need a pasuk at all? Yinaga.
How do you know? How do you know negicha means with a horn?
In the Heim,
You know because you learned the Chayder, but how did the Chayder ever know?
Right.
He learned because on the Bais Yid Chimish. How did the Bais Yid Chimish know? Right? So we know from this passage. Vaymer, my Vaymer, what is Vaymer? V'chitema divrei Torah, v'divrei Kabbalah Yal. If you can tell me, you can't bring me a riot, halacha to Hilchos Nezikin from a Novi. Therefore, Toshma b'chor shari hadol. We're not learning a halacha from Navi. We're just learning the definition of a word. Gilui milsa ba'almu. The negicha b'kernu. So again, why do I need the second pasuk of Yosy? Elamau detemo ki polig rachmana bein tam lemuid. Where does the Torah say that there's a difference between a tam and a muid? Meaning, a tam you only pay chatzin nezek because you can't really be responsible because it's something you don't normally expect to happen. Hanim l'betlusha. That's if an ox takes a horns, artificial horns in his mouth, and in his mouth he goes after someone and shtosh him. There, it's such an unusual thing. There, you pay chatzin nezek for the first two shots. But if he shtoishes somebody with his own horns, which is a lot more normal, maybe that's something that you have to take a precaution from immediately. And maybe even the first shot will be a muad. Even a regular horn that's not detached, is also subject to the rules of Tam and Mud. So the Rishonim ask, so it should have only said Bechor Shai. Why do I need the first pasuk for? So the Arshkro brings down from Tosus Rabbeinu Peretz and from another Rishon as well to tell us, you might have thought that it's such a mud nizach. If a shor takes a horns in his mouth and shtoises, that's so out of the realm of possibilities that he should be potter and ganzen. Kamash lon, you're chayiv for that as well. So that's why I brought that first, because we want to illustrate the full scope of what the hezek of Keren includes. Okay, so now that we found a Mekor in the Torah for Keren, told of the Keren Mai. What is the told of Keren? Zok to Gemara, Chaim's going to love my pshat over here. Negifa, pushing. If an animal pushes another animal and knocks it over and hurts it. Neshicha, if he bites out of spite. Revitza, if he plops himself down on Kalim to crush them. Ubida, giving a cup, giving a kick. Frek the Gemara, Maishna Negicha, the Korale Av. We consider Negicha an Av because it's mentioned in the Torah, the Chsiv Ki Yigach. But you know what? Negifa Nami Chsiv, Ki Yigoif. It said Ki Yigoif as well. So why isn't that considered one of the mazikin? Look, it says Yigoif Sharish Eshareyu. And then it says Oy Noida Kishoy Nagachu mit Tmol Shulshan. So the Gemara is a little bit weird. Why doesn't it say Oy Noida Kishoy Nagachu mit Tmol Shulshan? Is that not what we're talking about? We're talking about Negifa, not Negicha. So that's question number one that we're about to deal with. And question number two that we're about to deal with is, here it says, when it's talking about Ashar shtoising a person, it doesn't say v'chiyigoy, it says v'chiyigach. So what's going on over here? So Zok to Gemara, I'm going to answer you all these questions now. Ma'asha negicha the kar le'av t'chsev kiyigach negifa nami. Why am I getting? That's mute. Probably push the volume button. Zok Gemara, Negifanami, it says in the pasuk. Negifanami says Kiyigoy. Zok Gemara, when we're talking about Negifa, that's pushing. But Kiyigoy in the pasuk means goring with her horn. Hi Negifa, Negichi. The Kiyigoy in the pasuk is not the Negifa that we were talking about. That's a toilda. It's actually shtoising. How do I know that? The Tanya we have a brisa. Hazach ben Negifa. The Torah starts off with v'chiyigach shor isha shor re'eyu, v'sayim ben Negicha, and then later on the pasuk is v'chishor nagachu, right? So why is it going back and forth? Learn malach to teach you zuhu Negifa, zuhu Negicha. When the Torah uses the word Negifa, it also means goring. It means one and the same. So why is there this variation in language? Ma'ishno gabe odom d'chsiv kiyigach u'ma'ishno gabe behema d'chsiv kiyigach. The answer is the kiyigach is shtoising, but it's not with such a vengeance. The kiyigach is a much more violent type of shtoising, and therefore, Adam the Isle Mazla, a person who has mazel, and Rashi teaches. Actually, Rashi when he wrote this parish, was more Litvish, and he touched it. Isle Masla, Rashi touches Sheyesh Le Das Lishmar Skufai. He has human intelligence, so he can avoid and protect himself. In order for an animal to attack and hurt the man, he's got to do kiyigach. It's got to be with a vengeance. Ksiv kiyigach. Behema, who doesn't have that intelligence, it's much easier for an animal to get injured. The less lemazer ksiv kiyigach. Now, I saw in the Likutei Rashi, I don't have it here. Isle Masla means he has a malach protecting him. A human who has a malach protecting him, he's the one. In order for our shark to damage him, he's got to have more effort. That's kiyigach. So you see, even Rashi became a shtickle haimish at that, right? So Zok to Gemara.
Do about Kiyigach touched it, right?
Right.
And the Nagach is Gor.
Gora, okay. Umiltzak of Orcha Kamash Malon. It's teaching us, Agav Orcha, it's teaching us an important insight. The mood la'adam have a mood la'behem. If a shar is so wild that it's going to hurt a person, it's for sure a mood for a behem. But a mood la'behem, if you have a shar that stoys a shar 3 times, Lav dafka is amud la'adam, because that requires a much higher level of violence. So amud la'behemer have a mood la'adam. So I want to stop a second because we learned about these 4 toldos: Negifa, Neshicha, Revitza, Bita. We're not that familiar with animals. It's a little bit hard for us to visualize what these are. So I found 2 gewaltige eitzes how you can visualize them. If you ever went to the Gerrer Tish and you try, and you're trying to get to your place and you can't get there, there's a lot of Negifa going on. You have these big Gerrer, bam, you go flying. That will be Negifa. You're going to ask me, that's by people, and this is behemoth? It's not so fair. Neshicha, heaven help you, if you reach out to take someone else's shirayim, his teeth are going to be right in your hand. Revitza, if you sit on someone's place by the tish, she's going to sit right down on you. And Be'ita, if you get in his way, he's going to give you a kick. So that's one way to look at it. For others who can't relate to a tish, if you ever went to a Litvishe chasana and there's yeshivas there, everyone's pushing and pushing. Nobody wants to. By chasana, everyone dances nicely in the outside circle, and then people in the middle. By Litvishe, everyone's pushing to get into the middle. So they also have the same 4 hezekim, negifa, neshicha, revitzo, bita. So now it's a little bit easier for us to visualize what these things are. And yes, people who do that are taka behemoths.
I was there by Litvishe.
Okay, gewaltig. Okay, where are we holding? Where are we holding? Okay, Zakma Neshicha. Why is Neshicha listed as a told of Karen? Told of the Sheni. Isn't it eating? Zakma, no, there's different types of biting. Loy, Shen Yeshanol Azek. Shen, when the animal's eating, it's eating because it wants to satisfy itself. It's not biting to hurt somebody. It's not an attack. Ha, the Neshicha is Einanol Azek. Frektima Revitzu Be'ita, plopping down on something, damaging it. Is that not told of the regel, which is damaging as you walk? Regel has ekamotzi. Regel is a very common damage. When an animal walks, it steps on things and will crush them. Hani, but this breaking things with a vengeance by plopping down on them, ain't as ekamotzi. Elo Zakt Gemara told they saying Lav Kayoyt ben Damar Papa Ahaya. Clearly, the toldos of Karen, we're just going to explain and elaborate, are the same. Ilema Ahani, if you're going to tell me that the example of Toldosein Lav Kayotzeben that Rav Papa said applies to some of these Nazikin, if you're going to say that it's referring to these Toldos, Negifa, Neshicha, Be'ita, and Revitza, Maishnoker, why would there be a difference? Maishnokeren, the Kavanose Lahazik, the animal intended to do damage, Uma Moincha, it belongs to you, Ushmirase Alecha, and the responsibility to watch it is upon you. Hananami, these other Hezekiahs have exactly the same features. So therefore, when Rav Papa said some are kayotzim and some not, the nezek of Karen must be the some that are kayotzim. So let's try to find some of the other toldos and see if maybe they are lav kayotzim. And the toldo the Karen, kikaren. That's concluded that the toldo of Karen is like Karen. The Amar Papa that some toldos are not like the Av. Maybe it's referring to a Shein V'Regel. Maybe. First, we have to know what is the Makar of Shein V'Regel. So Dr. Shein V'Regel Hechaksi. Where in the Torah do you find the halacha of Shein V'Regel? So that's in Shemois Chav Beis. So let me look it up. In Shemois Chav Beis it says as follows. Ki yaver ish sada oikerem. That's not what we're focused on. V'shilach es be'iroi. You send your animal. V'shilach, the Gemara is going to tell us the word v'shilach refers to regel, walking on something and crushing something in passing. Ubir b'steyacher is referring to shein, an animal eating somebody else's food. And we know the halach is meitav sadeu, meitav karma yishalom. So v'shilach es be'iroi, ubir b'steyacher, regel and shein. Zog to Gemara. V'shilach zeh regel. Where do you see v'shilach as regel? This is actually a beautiful pasuk. The pasuk talks about Yidden who built a beautiful household with geboit of mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim. That's going to grow and create beautiful, beautiful crops, and they're going to need, when you have a whole bunch of crops, what do you need? You need animals to be able to do the threshing, to walk casually over all of the stalks to break them up from the kernels that you're trying to separate. Is referring that we're going to have such schusim that we're going to need a whole crew just to harvest them and process them. That's how we know that shilach is referring to casually stepping and crushing things. Ubir b'steyacher zu hashem. And there's two pshatim in Rashi. Either it means kasher yivar hagol, like your teeth will grind atumai till it's completely ground, and golol refers to teeth because golol means it's uncovered. Sometimes your teeth are uncovered, like when you smile or when you open your mouth, but sometimes they're covered. The other pshat is kasher yivar hagol atumai is the beginning of the digestion process is chewing. The very, very, very end is the manure factory. So kasher yivar hagol atumai, you see, is referring to eating and digesting, which once again refers to shein. So I think we learned successfully the first blot of Bava Kamma. We should be zoicha to learn every blot of Bava Kamma with a klorkat, with a kshmak, and to finish it in the right time.
I wasn't the first minute. You learned the first toast.
No.
So the
Gerrer, Yosy.
Shkoyach, I got the
some hands